Welcome to For the Love of Self podcast. My name is Heather Murphy. I am an embodiment coach and trauma-informed breathwork facilitator. It is my mission to help you love yourself deeply. If you are desiring unbreakable confidence and are ready to embody your authentically expressed next level self, where you are creating a life with heart-opening relationships, finances, and success, then get ready for your dose of self-love. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to For the Love of Self podcast. This is your host, Heather Murphy, and today I am interviewing Julie DeCollins. I'm just getting your name all mixed up.
No, you're
I'm
good.
sorry.
You're good.
Today we're having on Julie DeLuca Collins. I had to actually read it because I tried to memorize it. My God, it's so good to have you. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Heather. So fun to spend time with you today.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get to know more about you. And that's one thing I really like to have people on for is to one, expand this. But first, if you don't mind, just kind of start off telling us who you are, what you do, what you're about.
Yeah, well, I am about service. Service is important to me. I was always told that as a human, we are here to help each other. And I know that when I started my career as a teacher, I always wanted to be a helper and continue to evolve from being a teacher. I went into corporate America and I worked for a national educational company for many years. And then I pivoted to working for myself. I'm an entrepreneur, but most importantly, I help women who are entrepreneurs and don't have the background or experience to run a business to create profitable income. I help them do that either as a mentor or a coach. And really, my goal is to run a business like a business so that as entrepreneurs, we can have the freedom we all want. A lot of times, we end up leaving a 9 to 5 and end up working 24/7. So I help women who are struggling to bring in consistent income do so. I'm also a Tiny Habit certified coach, among other certifications that I have. And mainly, I became certified in coaching because selfish reasons. I wanted to be able to become a better person. And along the way, all of these things that I have learned for myself are the things that I help individuals with in my practice.
I love that. I feel like ain't that the way it goes? It's like,
It
I
does.
want to be a better person. And then you get hooked.
You get hooked. And, that's the reason why I started my podcast as well. My podcast is Casa de Confidence. And I just share the stories of amazing individuals who have gone confidently in the direction of their dreams. And we really just talk about what is it that we're doing and how did we get there? Because sometimes we see people from the outside and we think, oh my God, they're amazing, but I could never do that. Well, we all can.
Yeah.
We just need to decide. And even though we may not feel confident, we can take a step in the right direction and work at going after our dreams.
I love that so much. It's a huge part of my mission as well is to like expand people. Like I've listened to a couple of episodes of your podcast and
Mm,
it's just amazing. Like when you get to hear other people's stories, you're like, oh, like I can relate to this aspect
mhm.
of their
Yeah.
story. And so that means I can do it too. It just is like the seeing to believe kind of idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, the thing that for me is incredibly meaningful. And thanks again for tuning in. I think that that's the greatest compliment someone pays somebody else is that we're
Mhm.
tuning in and we are listening to them. And I know that the listeners and the people who have been my guests are grateful that, we're sharing each other's stories.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm really curious. I have to ask because I used to work as a
Yeah.
substitute teacher. So were
Mhm.
you a public school teacher, elementary, high school, or?
No, so I knew that I wanted to teach kindergarten. So my first job, my student teaching was at a preschool
Oh,
that did
wow.
3 months old through first grade. And I worked in pre-K. And then that's basically where I taught. And then I worked in our church at a school. And then I moved to middle school. And I did that for a couple of years. And although I
Mhm.
loved pre-kindergarten, kindergarten, and the babies, and I love middle school, I knew I wanted more. And I
Yeah.
knew that I wanted to create a larger impact, but I wasn't sure how to do it. And then the company that I worked for many years in education found me. They recruited me. They had the
Mm.
experience that they were looking for, not only in education but also in retail. I put myself through school in working retail. And I know both sides of the coin, right? The teachers that
Yeah.
works 24/7 and the retail people that are exhausted. And I made the best of it. It really was the best of both worlds for me working for this company.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Because I just think about so many people that are listening right now, especially because we have a lot of moms and, maybe they didn't, like for myself, like I didn't really
Mhm,
develop my career before I had my daughter. And so
mhm,
I think exactly to what you speak to, it's like a lot of people who are listening, like may not feel like they had a super solid background in like business or whatever kind of like career, let's say career development of
mhm.
any sort. So, and like having worked in the public school system for a short period, I definitely see how, I mean, so many of these jobs, right? They just burn you out and you're not
Mm,
getting paid very well.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
and you're probably like wondering, how do you get started with starting a business, which is a can of worms. So I'm not going to expect
That's
you.
another story, but I have to say that's the other reason I think for me has been really priority to help individuals launching and growing a business because for many years, as I climbed this corporate ladder, the companies that I worked for were in education. So I always have been immersed in working with teachers, seeing what they do. And I
Mhm.
know that even forget the teachers, even the parents, at times you are a stay at home mom and you end up spending so much time coming and going. And a lot of these women have come to me and say, "Oh, I don't have any experience. What do I have to show for?" But I will tell you, no matter what road you've been in life, you are qualified to take the next step. You
Mhm.
have the lessons. You have what it takes. You just have to make the decision that you want to do it.
Definitely. I feel that way, especially in the coaching world where it's just like
Mhm.
whatever your experience is, like
Yeah.
you have the ability to serve, you have the ability to teach and provide lessons for
Yeah.
people. So it's not limited and there's more growth for ourselves as
Mhm.
coaches. and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, that's beautiful. So I'm curious, just like I want to get a little peek into the weeds. So what was that transition like when you went off on your own, from like
Yeah.
working a full-time job, like moving up in the world in
Sure.
your career, but then like being like, I want to go on my own. So are you like working a couple of hours a night in the evening, or how does that look?
Yeah. Well, it's very simple. I my first coaching certification I got when I in 2016, 2017. And again, I thought, huh, maybe this is something in the future I can do. And at the time, and I still do, I was volunteering with an organization here in Connecticut that does a lot of mentoring and coaching for young women at the college level. And I love that. I really love being
Mm,
able to just share my experience, what it was like growing in corporate America, what it was, especially for a Latina and a woman to get to the executive level and some of the challenges that come from growing and coming up in the ranks. A lot of times there's so many things that we learn and we learn the hard way. And I really wanted to help others kind of avoid these pitfalls. So that
mhm,
that was a little bit of what I started to do. And in the back of my mind, there was still like, huh, what would it be like to do this full time?
mm,
And as I started to kind of think of that, I I kept hearing this other piece of the coin that said, "Julie, but you don't wanna leave. What would people think? What are
mm,
people going to think? People are gonna think you're crazy. You're leaving a six-figure salary and success, and you get to travel, for the uncertainty of launching a business." And all of that was still in the back of my mind, but I continued here and there, and then at one point in 2019, I created a website, and I remember what the website looks like. I should have taken some screenshots, but it was not good at all. It was just like one little paragraph that came. It was silly, but and I never shared it with anyone. I'm like, I had a website that said JulieDeLucaCollins.com, but again, it didn't take anywhere and it didn't have anything other than what I did and who I was. And I still didn't have clarity in what it would look like if I left my corporate job. I still knew that I wanted to help women who were stuck and needed the type of support and experience I had. And again, the clarity was not 100% there. And I continued to get certification because as most of us women do, right? When we are uncertain, the most certain thing we can do sometimes is I'm going to go get that certification or I'm going to get that training because we feel that the more qualifications we have, the better success we will have. And in some cases, like for instance, in education, absolutely. If you want to get to a certain level, then you do have to have certain qualifications. But when it comes to other things, especially as entrepreneurs, the best teacher, the best success you will find is from taking action. And I was not doing that. Again, certification here, certification there. I had a couple of people that I was working with again and helping them as a coach and mentor in their executive careers. And that comes easily talking about what's the next level? When should you ask for a promotion? When is it next time to leave, etc. And all of the sudden in 2020, at the beginning, I also did a lot of speaking on behalf of the company. I spoke at national conferences and I thought, oh, I really love doing that. I wonder how can I get to do that more, right? But I never really thought about what was the next level or how to create this roadmap for myself. And of course, in March of 2020, we all went into lockdown. And of course, the company that I was working for was hit very hard. Immediately, all of our programs that we had in schools shut down. All of the programs were gone because we weren't in schools. And I started to immediately, the way that my brain works, started to, okay, how can we create new income sources? How can we help parents? And I started to kind of go into let's create something new and innovate mode, right?
Mm,
And there was a call that came in from the COO, the chief operating officer of the company, who is a friend of mine. And he said, hey, I just wanted to let you know that the CEO in the company just offered me a separation package and I'm
mm,
being laid off. And I was devastated because I thought he's my friend. We've been working together for so long. We work very well. We were kind of the yin to the yang. He was the COO, I was the CIO, and we did a lot of work together. And
mm,
immediately I went into fix it mode, right? Oh my goodness, don't worry. I will help you. There's so much you can do. You can do consulting. And I started to just kind of go through like all the different things that he could do, right? And how he was going to land on his feet. And then and I was trying to comfort him. And all of a sudden it hit me, huh, wait a minute. He's being let go. And then I thought, I think I'm next. So I
mm,
said, hey, I think I'm next. Hold on. And then I texted our CEO, who a terrific, friend and person. And I texted him and I said, I'm on the phone with Alan and am I next? And you could see the little dots on the phone and I'm like, okay, okay. And the next thing you know, my teams were, he was calling me on Teams via the computer. And I thought, okay. And sure enough, he said, I have to do this. He's like, I'm broken, but we need to offer you a separation package because we cannot afford you anymore. And at that moment, there was this moment of like, oh, because I'd never been fired from a job. I'd never been let go. And again, I've been working since I was 13. So it was just kind of the thing like, oh. And then at the same time, even before we ended the conversation, I thought, I know exactly what I'm going to do. This is the chance. This is the universe saying to me, take the leap, go to the next step. You've been talking about doing this. And that's how I launched my business. I immediately, it was definitely hard that night. There was some tears and some uncertainty. But as I went to bed that night, I'll never forget. My husband, of course, is asleep, and I'm sitting down, trying to toss and turn and figure out. A lot of uncertainty was going on with this whole pandemic lockdown. What does that mean? And then I decided to sit up. I grabbed my phone and I started to write a mission statement for what I wanted to do and also create a vision. And I started to write what the vision looked like. I wanted to help women. I wanted to be able to give them the tools that it took to feel more confident. I wanted to share everything that I had learned. I wanted to give them the ability to have a cheerleader, a friend, someone who held them accountable next to them. So all of that started to come to life in that vision. And to this day, that is still what drives me. Now, in the first 6 months of my business, um, my goal was to help women, mainly in corporate America, and it was easy for me to then I went onto LinkedIn, I started to message people and say, "Hey, I'm looking for consulting. This is what I do. I can help." And certain things started to come. I mean, immediately people started to reach out and say, "Hey, can we hire you for this and that?" But the more that I continued to work with individuals, the more things started to become clearer. Individuals started to come to me and ask for me to help them. Hey, how do I run a business? How do I do that? I don't know how to do this. How do I get a client? How do I price myself? How do you market your business? And all of that comes very naturally to me. And it's a lot of what I did in my past life in the business world. So that's when I started to coach women entrepreneurs. In addition to doing the one-to-one, I started to transition. I decided to do a group coaching and I put it out there. I said, "Hey, I'm starting a group. Who wants to join?" And it was a week group. It was going to start after Thanksgiving of 2020. The next thing you know, I sold out the group, and after I sold out the group, I realized like, oh, 6 weeks is not long enough. We need 8 weeks." And then I gave these women an additional, 2 weeks, and then I said, "Oh, 8 weeks is not long enough. It really needs to be 12." And that's how I started to continue to evolve and figure out what works, what doesn't work, how to help individuals. And now, again, I still work one to one with some clients. I still do some executive coaching here and there. I do speaking, but mostly I love the group, the interaction that I have with clients. And of course, we've evolved. My husband, who is part of my business, right? He's my business partner. He started editing our hobby podcast. And now the Hobby Podcast is not just a very successful podcast in the top 2% of podcasts, but now we also help other individuals grow and launch a podcast successfully. And we do all the production that is needed. So we support individuals in that realm as well. And it's been an amazing adventure. And that's really the story.
It's amazing. Wow, it's so inspiring. And one
Mhm.
thing that really sticks out to me is this idea of like the stepping stones, and that
Mhm.
I think about you talking about your first website and how
Oh, my God. Yeah.
sometimes stuff like that really trips people up, myself included,
Oh,
where I'm
yeah.
like, well, I'm working on my branding. Like, I don't, and it's like at some point you just have to like pick something and move on because it's going to
Yeah.
change anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And Heather, you know what? And I want to normalize that I didn't always have it together. Like I, not only the first website, but I remember the first couple weeks of being in business. Biggest concern I had is what color should my logo be and what kind of scripty font I could use that you could still read. And
Exactly.
for anyone listening who wants to launch a business, I would be a terrible business coach if I didn't say that. You don't need a logo. You don't need a website. All you need is someone who is willing to give you money because you are going to give them the knowledge, the support, or you're going to teach them or give them a product that they need. Someone has a
Yeah.
need and you're filling the need. So that's all you need is to find that person that needs what you have. And the way that you do that is very similar to how I started when I went to LinkedIn. Hey, do you need someone that can do this? I am available. What are you working on? Can I? And sometimes it just means connecting and telling people what you do. Because
Mm.
then I have an example. Someone who lives in town and when the next town over during the pandemic, she started baking bread. Just started baking delicious bread, by the way. And she told a friend, she's like, "Oh, I'm making a batch of bread." And then that friend said, "Oh, I want some." Then another person. And then all of a sudden she's baking out of the church, the local church, because she needed a bigger kitchen. And now she is the top bakery in Connecticut because she told one person that told one other person, and she continued to say, "Hey, I make bread." She would post on Facebook, "I'm making a batch of bread. Who wants some?" And it's a little different, obviously, with a service. It's, you don't, but you want to say, "Hey, I'm a coach." Where I was afraid to tell people I was a coach because I was afraid of what people were going to think, and, "Oh my god, I have a career." I tell people all the time. I was, over the weekend, I was traveling with some girlfriends, and one of their friends met us and, "What is it that you do?" And I said, "Oh, I help women launch a business." She's like, "Oh, I wanted to do virtual assistant. I just don't know how to do that." I'm like, "Oh, you just go here and you do that." And the next thing you know, now I didn't do it so she can hire me, but I did it because I know. Guess what? So now she's someone that knows me, knows what I do, and either in the future she'll need someone like me or will tell someone else about me. So that's really what it's important for people to understand.
Yeah, it's like that saying, your network is your net worth, because
Absolutely.
it's like, meeting
Mhm.
people.
100%.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like that's something I've only been learning this last year, where I think I was always so shy to put myself out there. And I was like, oh, I don't want to bother people. And I don't want them to feel like I'm being salesy or something, that I want something from them. And,
Yeah.
but yeah,
We think
just,
that a lot, don't we, as women? Like, "Oh, I don't wanna be
yeah.
salesy." But
Yes.
if you think about it, like, all of us have needs.
Yeah.
And if I don't know that you bake bread, I'm gonna go to the Stop and Shop to get my bread. But wouldn't it be
Yeah.
better that I get the bread that is freshly made, that is just delicious, and it doesn't have any additives and all of that? So that's
It's,
important, and it's not about salesy, but it's about just sharing what you do and who you are and what is different about you than the bread that's in the shelves at the grocery store.
I love that. Yeah. I was just going to say it is very time consuming to learn how to make sourdough. And so, like, what is your sourdough? Like,
Yeah.
what is your, it doesn't have to be complicated. Like, your offers don't have to be complicated. It
Oh,
can
no,
just
not at
be,
all.
like you said,
And
it's like having a way to have
yeah,
people pay you and then be
that's
like,
all.
this is
That's
what
all
I
you
can help you
need.
with.
That's all you need. I think of another example. My neighbors down the way, they have a beautiful yard, and every time I drive by their house on the way home, I think, "Wow, their yard is so pretty," and I wish I could do that. Like, I we barely, do the minimum, right? And one day there was a sign outside of their yard, and it took me forever to actually be able to read the sign because the letters and everything was too small. But eventually I went and I looked at it, and it was a sign that said "Landscaping by Morgan." So then I'm like, "Oh, let me call Morgan."
Mhm.
And it turns out it was their daughter. And Morgan, I said, "You do landscape?" She's like, "Yes." And I said, "Well, here, I'm going to hire you because I want my yard to look pretty like your parents. But number
Mhm.
two, I'm gonna give you some advice. Put a QR code in there and make it bigger, and don't use the scripty writing because nobody can read that, especially if you're a middle-aged woman that's driving really fast past the house. They're not gonna read the sign, okay?" Guess what? Morgan left her full-time job to work full-time in her business.
That's
Because
amazing.
I'm not saying because of me, but because she told people what she does, and
Yeah.
her work spoke for itself. And I think that
Yeah.
that's the one thing that we have to get over as women. We have to get over the shyness, like, "I am not a good salesperson," or "I hate to sell. I don't want people to think I'm bothering them." No, people who need you will come to you, but they need to know that you are there, and they need to see what is it that you do when you're there.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. It's funny. I was going to ask, did you tell Morgan to fix the marketing?
I sure did.
That's
That
so
was one of the
great.
first things.
That's funny. That's like a very common thing I notice with myself driving around town. I'm like, that I can't read that.
Can read make it big, make it big. And I said, "You don't
Mm.
have to use the script if you wanna be feminine, then just use pink." And guess
Yeah.
what? Now her signs and that became her brand, right? Her signs are this beautiful hot pink that as you drive around town, it's becoming something that is recognizable,
Oh, yeah, like a
right?
brand.
Like a brand. And you didn't have to sit around wondering what script and font you were going to use.
Yeah, and I love that, it goes back to that thing again in the case of Morgan that her first sign, her first, let's say, website or it, like
Mhm.
it's not gonna like you just have to take action. You just have to
Yeah,
start making stuff. And
absolutely.
that's been one of my biggest lessons this last year is like it's okay if it's messy, not intentionally messy, don't
Mhm.
I mean try to make your best work, but it's obsessing
Absolutely.
over the details. And it's because you're going to get that kind of feedback, like you said. It's like somebody's
Yep,
going to be like, I loved this, but I couldn't read it, I couldn't see it, or I
absolutely.
didn't understand what you do, or whatever it is. So just taking
Yeah.
that feedback is really important. So
Yeah, and Heather, I can guarantee you that if there is a listener that is saying, "I launched my business," and I can guarantee you this person will make a post on Facebook and ask, "Hey, do you know what I do and who I help?" I can tell you
yeah.
that for as long as you feel that you post too much, that you're bothering people, most people won't get it, won't know,
Hmm.
because we think we're putting it out there a lot, but we're not. People are really listening to their own drumbeat, and
Yeah.
they're not paying attention to what we do and how we're helping others until they need what we offer.
Yeah, that's so true. So something that just came to mind, I'm curious if you could speak on tiny habits a
Oh,
little
I love tiny habits. Thank you for
bit.
asking. Tiny habits is something that I learned, well, as most things that I learned for my own selfish reasons, I have been really big into habits. And I know that, for instance, my dad was a very habitual person. He really was disciplined, regimented, and I knew that part of his success came from having that regimentation and being disciplined. And I do have my spurts of discipline for certain things, but at the same time, I'm also that person that could be, ooh, oh, shiny, right? Like most of us. And the habits that I had as a corporate person really helped me grow. And as I became an entrepreneur and continued to build my business, yes, I was doing some of the same things and they translated, but I thought, "Oh, I wish I was more motivated. I wish I could just stick to it, right? And not like be good and do it for a little bit and then kind of fall off the wagon." And as I kept reading, of course, I read all of the books, Atomic Habits, The Power of Habit, this and that. And they were great, but there was a piece missing, and I couldn't understand what it was until I happened to catch, I don't know if you or your listeners remember in 2020, 21, Clubhouse, which was an online
Mm.
platform. You can go in and people would speak and you would listen. So I heard Dr. Fogg, Dr. BJ Fogg, speak in Clubhouse about tiny habits. And the first thing that I heard was that tiny is mighty. And then I heard that it doesn't take 66 days, 21 days to create a habit because motivation is not what creates behavior. And that kind of blew my mind. I'm like, what do you mean motivation doesn't create behavior? As I started to again learn more from Dr. Fogg, I got the book Tiny Habits. It turns out that Dr. BJ Fogg is the behavioral scientist that has done all of this research in habit creation. And Dr. Fogg, his research is mainly what a lot of these books, like Atomic Habits, is based on. The piece of the puzzle that's missing is that when we go big, we're still relying on motivation. So, for instance, January 1st, most of us are going to the gym and we're going to be there for the hour and we're really motivated to get rid of the extra pounds we put on over the holidays. And that's very much weighing on our minds. But as life begins to happen and the motivation kind of leaves us, then we start to fall off the wagon. So, tiny habits is all about creating a new behavior, but creating such a behavior that it's so small that you don't have to rely on motivation to repeat it. And the way that it works is that you have to find the ABCs of habit creation, which A is an anchor moment. Find an existing behavior that you already have in your life. B, after you find that behavior, do your new behavior, right? And C, which is the most important part of it all, celebrate that you did the tiny behavior, because the celebration, giving yourself props, making yourself feel good is the way that our brain changes. So, for instance, one of the things that has been really important to me is staying hydrated throughout the day. Now, I like to drink at least half a gallon, if not more, of water. But a lot of times I found myself thinking, oh, I didn't drink water today. Ooh. And I would beat myself up for not doing the thing. I was very motivated on one day, and the next day I wasn't doing it. So, the premise of tiny habits and using the framework, I found the behavior that I do every day without fail. What is that? Well, I have to let my dogs out every morning. So in the morning, my behavior is I come downstairs, open the back door, and let the dogs out. That's the anchor moment. Second, I move to doing the new behavior. And by the way, it's a tiny behavior. I'm not starting to drink a gallon of water right then and there. But what I do is I actually fill my water glass, right? Once I fill my water glass, and that's the tiny behavior, all I am doing is going for filling out the glass. Then I celebrate. I'm like, oh, good job, Julie. You're a girl who drinks water. And I make myself feel good. And guess what? Once this is full, eh, I drink it throughout the day. And when it's empty, right, I have to most likely go to the bathroom. That's my other anchor moment. Once I go to the bathroom, it's a reminder like, hey, this is an anchor moment. I need to refill my water, right? Because my bladder is empty, so is my glass. And then I celebrate that I did it again. And that's how I create that momentum. And never am I relying on the motivation to do the behavior. I'm just relying on the automaticity of what I've done. But I created that automation because I made myself feel good that I'm actually doing it. I created the evidence that I'm doing it. In other words, that's how we find confidence, is by doing the thing and starting small and consistent.
I love how simple that is too, because I've read Atomic Habits and I'm like, oh, there's so much information and
Oh,
it's a
so much to
wonderful
do, right?
book.
And
Yeah.
it's a wonderful book. I love it.
Yeah,
James Clear is amazing. And I
totally.
learned a lot from it. But it wasn't until I figured out that tiny is mighty, then
Yeah.
life changed for me. And now I teach that to my clients, and I use the framework of tiny habits for all of my clients to use to be not motivated, but to do the work that they need to in their business, to get the new clients, to stay consistent, to do the boring stuff that sometimes we put off. But it's
Yeah, I
very
love.
important to create that habitual behavior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's amazing how it grows, and just like
Mhm.
being patient with yourself. Like you said,
Yeah.
it's like not having the goal of a gallon of water every
Mhm.
day, like I've always had a really hard, I always have like this thing with my girlfriend where we're like, we're gonna do 75 hard. And then we're like
Yeah.
day three, we're like, nope.
Nope,
And
nope, because life
yeah.
happens. And you know
Yeah.
what? And I would say with 75 hard, it's a great concept, but you could say, you know what? Today, my goal is that I'm going to move my body. And
Hmm.
if your goal and then your tiny behavior is you're going to put your gym shoes on because they're next to the bed when you wake up, right?
Hmm.
And you celebrate that you put your gym shoes on. Sometimes you're going to go for that walk or that workout or whatever, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes you're not going to feel like it, but you will still be successful because you did the tiny behavior. And
Yep.
then you don't go down the spiral like, oh, I missed. I might as well not do it tomorrow. Or, oh, it's 2 days in a row. I didn't do it. Oh, well, how is that going to help me? Oh, I'm really behind now. And then that's when we start the shoulda, woulda, coulda for ourselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just share an example too, and then I have a question. But um, a couple of years ago, I like so many of us put on weight during COVID and was
Hmm.
like, okay, like how do I get back into because I always was like a gym person and all that. And I just started doing these like 5-minute little YouTube video workouts, and I was
Yeah.
like, okay, it feels
Love
pathetic, but
that.
I just trying to be nice to myself and be like, this is where we're
Mhm.
at. This is just where we're at.
Love it.
Um, but now, yeah, like I take my dogs for a walk for an hour every day. And now I've started running again on the treadmill when I am reading my grad school homework. And so, It's
Oh,
amazing how it's like over time, it's just like, oh, this is the kind of person I am. Like you said, I'm a girl who drinks water. It's like I'm a girl
yeah.
who works out. So
That's right, and that makes a big difference because you feel
yeah.
good, I'm sure, when you're saying that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Like that builds that confidence. So what are some like good healthy ways to celebrate? Because I feel like that can get kind
Ooh.
of
Oh,
blurry
yes.
too. Like,
So glad
right.
you asked that. Heather, this is probably as a tiny habits coach and any other tiny habits coach will tell you, this is the thing that people struggle with the most, the celebration part, because we're like, "Oh, how do I
Yeah.
celebrate?"
You're
Could
like,
be
oh.
very simple. There's a couple ways in which I celebrate. Yes, I will tell myself, "Good job, Julie. You did fill in the blank." But it doesn't have to be big. It could just be, one of my clients, what she does is that every time she checks her calendar and then she, puts her to-dos in her top 3 to-dos for the day, she actually clicks on her phone that's in front of her and she has a picture of her grandkids there. And then
Mm,
that makes her feel good when she sees that. And then
mhm.
the brain doesn't know that you're feeling good about the grandkids or the calendar or doing your thing. The brain only knows that you did the thing and you feel good and you felt good, right? So
Yeah.
think about little things like, oh, go me, or smiling. Like think about something that maybe you get the email telling you that you won the lottery. Like, what would that be like? Ooh, I
Yeah.
won the lottery, or the feeling that you get after you crumple up a paper and you throw it in the wastebasket and you make the shot. Ooh, I made it, right? Think of these little things. And again, it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be this whole, like, I'm going to throw a party, but it could just be something subtle, something that makes you smile. A lot of times for me, that celebration, if I'm not telling myself, oh, I'm a girl who drinks water. When I'm looking at my dogs, I'm like, oh, look how cute they are. Look at them running in the yard first thing in the morning, right? My
Yeah.
brain begins to feel good for that.
I love that. So, do you mind also sharing another ABC example in
Yeah,
business?
sure. So, one of the things that I think a lot of people struggle with is email. And I think that email could be the thing that sucks you in. And then of course, we get so stuck and we're checking it every single minute. Now I'm going to give you a different behavior, right? Number one, I'm going to recommend to anybody who is listening, stop getting your dings. Don't have the notifications on, turn those off, because every time that you are in the middle of something and ding the text, ding the email, right? Your attention goes to that and then it's
Yeah.
sucking your energy. Now, as far as one of the things that I recommend to my clients is number one, don't check email first thing in the morning. Why? Because email is somebody else's priorities for you. It's
Mm,
okay. Start your day with finding what the priorities for you are. So, my anchor moment is when I come to my desk. That's my anchor moment. I'm going to come to my desk. Then the first thing that I open is I actually have a Chrome extension for this program. It's called, and it's free, it's called Momentum. And it shows me a beautiful picture of somewhere in the world, and then I can write my 3 top tasks on the screen. So, and then after I decide, like I look at my calendar, I see, okay, what are the things that I didn't get to yesterday, or what are the things that are priorities for today, right? Then I write those down. I'm like, oh, good job, Julie, right? And then I celebrate that. Now, sometimes after that, I may jump into a coaching call or I may actually jump into the task. And then check email. When I check email, by the way, this is the thing. The anchor moment is, right? I open my email. The way that I will check it is I start to scan through. Anything that I can answer in less than 3 minutes gets answered.
mhm.
Everything else, if you cannot answer this person in 3 minutes, then it goes into the to-do list, right? And
Yeah.
that's a lot of what we do, that we're like, "Oh, I have to answer everybody. Oh, I have to do this." No, you don't have to do anything. I can tell you I probably have over 200 emails right now that are unopened, but a lot of them are either notifications or something else, and then I'll scan through, "Okay, which ones do I need to answer first?" And then rest, they get deleted.
Mm, I so appreciate you sharing that one. I needed to hear that.
We all need to hear that. Let me tell you, I'm not perfect. I have my moments. Um, the other thing too is I think for many of us, we think, I'm going to miss out or something is going to happen that I need to pay attention to. But sit down and figure out what is the one thing, right? That will move the needle most for you.
Yeah,
And certainly checking email, it's not it. I
definitely
have a
not.
list. I have a list of things that only I can do, right?
Right.
Coach a client, be on a podcast, record a podcast for myself, right? Um, do some of the contracts. I still do those, right?
Yeah.
All of these things are the things that only I can do. Now, when I come to my desk and I find myself starting to do something that somebody else can do or that it's not a priority, then it brings me back to like, oh, wait a minute, that's not my job. And if
Mm.
I don't, for instance, in the beginning, I didn't have an assistant or someone to delegate, but so I needed to be everything and everyone. But what I prioritize is doing the things that only I could do. If I could delegate this to somebody else, then those are the things. And I didn't have the somebody else. I actually created the admin time in my calendar in which that's when I did it. But it didn't get done until I actually did the things that move my needle more.
Hmm. Yeah. Makes so much sense. I think it can be hard to see that stuff when you're in it because it's like
Oh,
starting a business, like you said, there's just so many tasks and
yeah, well,
you can lose sight.
list all your tasks. And here's what I usually have my clients do. Take notes and pay attention to what you do in a week. Just, if you're writing emails, put it down. If you're doing social media, write it down. If you're on a podcast, if you're researching something, write everything down. The next week, do actually keep track of it. Like today, I spent 20 minutes doing emails. And then start to give yourself an hourly rate for the task,
Hmm.
right? So, is sitting in Canva to create a social media post a $100 an hour task, a $500 an hour task, a $10 an hour task? So, if you start to ask yourself and create a value for each activity, and you think, well, I want to be a six-figure earner, that six-figure earner in 24 hours, if they're only doing activities that are $10 an hour, they'll never get to six figures because there's not going to be enough time in 24 hours,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, that's for sure.
So think of that and make a list and then associate a dollar value and start with things that are moving your needle more, which are the things that have a higher value.
Yeah, I remember when I was getting my somatics certification, our coach was like, "You need an assistant yesterday." I was like, "Yeah." And it took me a long time to
Yeah,
finally like commit to that because you kind of go, "Oh, I
it's
just don't want. I don't
scary.
know. Yeah, it's
It's
scary."
scary. We don't, especially for as business owners, we think nobody could do it better than I can.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
reality is that, I'll give you an example. My mom, I just moved my mom to live with us. She came from
Okay.
Georgia. We live in Connecticut. And I love that I can take care of her. I can do a lot of things. But guess what? I can't do laundry for all of us anymore. I can't. And
This
guess
is a
what? You know how much is the laundry place in our town? It's $10 for 10 pounds. I can go to
yeah.
Starbucks
Yeah.
and spend $8 on a venti cafe mocha.
Yeah.
But for $10, I can get all of our laundry done and it comes back folded and all I have to do is put it away. And
Mm-hmm.
by the way, do I like folding? Oh yeah, I work retail. Nobody else can fold like I do.
Oh,
But
wow. I hate it.
is that yeah, my that's my husband feels the same way. But is that our What's
Yeah.
more important, the hour that I can sit with my husband and my mom and have dinner and be at peace, or the time that I would be running around or I'd be just sitting exhausted in front of the television trying to fold clothes and then have to put them away, as opposed to like, okay, here's my $10, give me my clothes, they're put away. And then I had the free time.
Yeah.
This is the thing. And for the ones who are listening, maybe you're not at a place in which you can use, you can spend the $10. Get creative. Don't say, I can't do that. Ask
Mhm.
yourself the right question. How can I? Right?
Yeah.
Maybe you start to barter with a friend. At the very beginning of my business, I wanted a full time assistant. I couldn't afford that. So I
Mhm.
went to the colleges and I said, hey, who do you know that needs an internship? Who do you know that would like to work a couple hours per week?
Mm.
Right?
Yeah, that's great.
And guess what? It's a win-win. She got some extra credit, she got some life experience, and I got someone to do all my social media. And I got it done. And it didn't
Yeah.
cost me other than, helping and mentoring her. So find different ways in which you can do it.
Gosh, that's a great idea, college student. I feel like,
Yeah.
Gen Zers are so good with social
Or
media
your or
now.
even your local high school. Our local high school has a marketing and audiovisual program.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
reach out.
Why
You'll
not?
never
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, exactly. And just like with what you're saying about even the laundry, I was like my grandma loves doing laundry and she still can move around and do that. Like
Oh,
when
so
she's here,
good.
she's just always doing the laundry for me. And I'm like, can you please live here?
Right?
So
I
yeah,
know, I
it's
know.
like and delegating, for those that have children, it's like I get my family involved in like the laundry's done, we're all folding it. This isn't just
That's
on
right.
me. So delegating
No.
in your family more.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I think that a lot of times we forget and if we're married, like I'm married to a husband that's wonderful, but sometimes, like if I don't tell him, hey, can you put that in the dishwasher?
Yeah. I say the dishwasher's receiving
Right.
dishes.
Right, right. It's like, okay, it's okay to remind someone. And
Yeah.
one of the rules that I have, and well, I call them protocols. My husband calls them rules. But our dishes only have one landing place. So if we're bringing the dishes, like I have my coffee cup here, if I'm going to take this to the kitchen, it's only going to have one landing place, and it's not the sink.
Oh, I
So
like that rule.
it goes immediately into the dishwasher,
Yeah.
which means, by the way, that your dishwasher should be available for receiving dishes.
Mhm.
So find the anchor moment. So for me, I don't go to bed unless, the kitchen is closed for the night. And I
Mhm.
start the dishwasher. After I fill my water bottle and I celebrate, I open the dishwasher and I take one cup out and I
Mm.
celebrate. Oh, good job. And then once it's open, I'm like, oh, okay, I might as well put everything else. So then it's available and ready for receiving additional dishes. So play the games with yourself. How can you make it easy?
Yeah, exactly. I know I've really been good about unloading the dishwasher while my coffee is being made. And I was like, wow, this is nice. The dishwasher is receiving all day. So
That's right. It's
yeah,
open for business.
it's open for business. So this is great.
Yeah.
So I'm curious for those who would like to work with you. I know you have a retreat coming up, but I also would be
Mm.
curious about like where people can start. Do you have kind of like a starting point or like a middle
Yeah,
point, like depending
absolutely.
on where people are at?
Yeah, absolutely. For first of all, if anybody is listening and they just want to talk to a coach, always. You can always book a 1 hour. It's free. I'm happy to talk to anybody. It won't cost you a thing because I know that for me, there's a lot of times in which maybe I just need to have the conversation. And
Mhm.
maybe I may or may not be the right person, but I'm always looking to connect people with the right person. I love connecting people. That's one of my superpowers. Number two, if people want to work with me, there's two ways in which they can do it. Number one, they can join the mastermind. And the mastermind is a group in which individuals come together and we support each other and we learn from one another. My mastermind also, I teach during the mastermind, and I also bring experts in their industry to come and teach us in the mastermind. I will tell you that I know a lot of people charge a lot of money for masterminds. I do charge, for the mastermind, it is $500, but it is $500 that I know a lot of people. That's not, if you wanted to work with me, $500 is not what you're going to pay one to one. You're going to pay a lot more. But the reason
Hmm.
I keep it at something reasonable is because I know the power of community. I
Yeah.
know how it can make and break a business by someone having the right support, the right tools, and being together. And one of the things that I also do within the mastermind, and this is another reason why I think it's a great way for people to work with me, is that I offer 15-minute SOS calls for anybody who's part of the group. So
Cool.
if you're stuck, you can get a 15-minute with me in which, you get a little bit of coaching or some accountability, or we go in direction. You also have accessibility to me within our private group. We're in Slack. You can always Slack me, send me a message. You can talk to me and communicate. So you always have my support. Now, additionally, this is one thing that a couple of my clients figured out. And I said, okay, you can do that. People who don't use the 15 minutes, they can actually bank that. And then they get a 1 hour a month with me
Ooh.
in addition to the weekly meeting. And then of course you get the support if you're part of the mastermind and you have a project that you're working in. And the implementation is sometimes the hardest part. I sometimes let you use my admin and you use my virtual assistant, and they can help you with a lot of the stuff as well. My goal is to create a community in which women are confident in building a business that allows them to live the life that they want.
Mm.
And again, I'm always looking to, collaborate or communicate, help somebody. Also, if someone is looking for more commitment, you can work with me one to one. If you work with me one to one, obviously that's a larger investment, but you get everything else thrown in there. You can attend the mastermind as well, and then you can also have access to my virtual assistant, etc. So it's easy. And
Yeah.
again, if last but not least, if you're not ready for an ongoing commitment with a mastermind, or you're not ready for a large investment like working one to one with me, you can hire me for a VIP day, or you can attend my retreat. The
Mhm.
retreat is a 1 day event. It is the first weekend in December. And after the retreat, you will walk away not only with a plan for your business for the next year, but you will also have your plan for the first 90 and 60 and 30 days of your business, so that you are able to get clients, create that consistent income, not be overwhelmed working 24/7, but really living the life that you enjoy and desire because you have the right systems and the right support in place. So I love my retreat. I created it for myself. Honestly,
Yeah.
again, very selfishly, I'm like, okay, what do I need? And now
Yeah.
I just invite others to join me in the party. And it's a really fun time that we actually did it in person last year and we had a blast. So I can't
Mm.
wait, for the retreat, although we're not doing it in person this year. I have some really fun things planned based on what I've been seeing people do and what they has helped them build that, move from making these income that maybe I'm getting money this month, maybe I'm not, maybe I'll pay the bills, maybe I won't, right? To all of a sudden, like, okay, I can cover my bills and I can have some fun money to put away or do something else, right? And that's what we
Yeah.
all want. We want to feel good about what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. We want an overflowing cup.
Yeah. And by the way, the cost of the retreat is what the mastermind would cost you for a month.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. And what was the date again?
Yeah,
Was
the date is December 7th. And Heather, everybody who works with me, right? If you do the mastermind and you join the mastermind, you get the retreat for free. You get the retreat
so cool.
included. And then you also get other, because I do mini classes in addition to that. So the classes that I would typically have people pay for, everybody who's a client of mine gets those for free.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, it seems like you've been really generous and in your mode of service. That's beautiful. And
Mm,
thank you so much
you're
for coming
welcome.
on. This was
Well,
really
thank you for
fun.
having me. You're very thoughtful questions. I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, definitely. It was really fun to learn like a simpler method for the habits because
Well,
Man, yeah,
anytime
that's
you want to, you want to talk more habits anytime. And for the listeners, um if you go to goconfidentlycoaching.com/quick links,
mhm.
you can there is a way for you to get 5 days of tiny habits coaching for free, no obligation. You will be coached by me for 15 minutes for a week, and you will be able to create 3 habits that you will be able to, after a week, be able to have consistently in your toolbox.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, we would definitely link all of the links, all the links
All
down
of the
below.
links, yeah. Quick links. So just think, what if you Google me, if you don't remember, Julie DeLuca Collins, and then you just go to my website and then add the /quick links, and that's where it is.
Easy, love that. All right, everyone. Well, thank you again, Julie, for coming
Thank
on and
you.
sharing your wisdom with us and expanding us to build our businesses. And we will catch you in the next episode. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Hey, thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. If you found this episode helpful in any way, I want to invite you to send it to someone who would benefit from it. Also, consider leaving a rate and review for the podcast, as it really does help the podcast get to the top of the recommendations list, so that even more people can get on the self-love train. Come follow me over on Instagram and TikTok at fortheloveof.self. That's at fortheloveof.self. Shoot me a message and let me know what your favorite takeaways were. I love meeting new people and watching them grow. And thank you again so much for tuning in today, as it really is an honor to be here with you. We'll catch you in the next one. Oh, and of course, don't forget to subscribe.